Before we dive into this story of family, strength, and setting boundaries, I want to invite you to join our community by subscribing. Here, we share stories that remind us of the lessons life quietly teaches, the ones we often learn too late. If you have a life lesson that has touched your heart, please share it in the comments. Your story might be the light someone needs today. They came late. Not just fashionably, but deliberately, 40 minutes past the hour I had set aside for welcoming them. The front door creaked open, and in they stepped, bearing the air of ownership, as if this house, these walls, belonged to them, not me. Andrew, my son, wrapped his arms around me in the half-hearted embrace I'd grown used to in recent years, a hug distracted and fleeting. It was the same one he gave when Claire had begun to plant her voice firmly between us, whispering her influence into his ear until he stopped hearing mine. Claire didn't walk in as a guest. She entered like a queen claiming a throne. Her eyes instantly sought the potato salad sitting on the dining table, a dish I'd spent hours preparing, following the same recipe and ritual every 4th of July since 1983. I'd stood at that stove with a heart full of love and hands tired but steady, crafting each dish to feed generations. But she didn't see that. She saw only the effort beneath her scorn. Without a hint of politeness, she dropped her purse on the chair next to me, the sound like a slap. Her gaze scanned the room, a curl of contempt twisting her lips. Then that high-pitched laugh escaped her, sharp and calculated, reserved for moments she wanted to humiliate me in front of others. "This wallpaper," she said, voice dripping with disdain, "it looks like something out of a retirement home." Andrew laughed, the kind of laugh that was less amusement and more compliance, like a child trying to fit in with the wrong crowd. It wasn't a shared joke between family. It was a performance, and I was the unwanted prop. The children, glued to their screens, didn't say hello. Sophie sprawled on the carpet with her tablet. Noah was already tearing apart napkins as if they were the only toys in sight, and Emily wore that typical teenager's look, a blend of boredom and irritation, as if my very existence interrupted her carefully curated world. I said nothing. I smiled with clenched teeth, moving through the motions of serving the burgers, tuning out Claire's whispered question to my sister-in-law Camille. Does she even know what TikTok is? Dinner moved outdoors, as it always did, beneath the ancient oak tree planted by my late husband the year Andrew was born, a silent witness to decades of family memories, laughter, and sometimes heartbreak. Plates passed from hand to hand, loaded with corn on the cob and sticky ribs, lemonade diluted with ice melting too fast in the summer heat. And then Claire caught my eye across the table. The wine glass in her hand caught the fading sunlight, and with a voice raised enough for neighbors to hear, she said, "We'll have to start touring nursing homes soon, won't we? Or are you planning to haunt this place forever?" The moment froze. Time seemed to pause, waiting for someone to speak, to stop the cruelty. Instead, Andrew snorted. A laugh, awkward, misplaced, and completely inappropriate, slipped from his lips. He looked down, like a boy who'd just heard a dirty joke and didn't know where to hide. Sophie giggled nervously, as if laughter might shield her from being next. I didn't say a word. I didn't even flinch. I kept chewing my chicken, staring at my son, wondering how a man I raised could allow his wife to speak to his mother like that, in her own home. No one else spoke of it. But I caught the glance Camille shot me from across the yard as she refilled the bowl of potato chips, a glance full of quiet understanding, the unspoken knowledge that I was breaking in that very moment. The kids continued to laugh at some mindless video on their screens. I wiped barbecue sauce from Noah's cheek and realized, with a sharp pang, that he hadn't even thanked me. The rest of the evening blurred past like a slow-moving storm, folding chairs collapsing under the weight of tired bodies, paper plates piling up, thank yous tossed out like empty phrases rehearsed one too many times. When they left, as they always did, without so much as lifting a finger to help clean, I took one last look at the oak tree outside, its leaves whispering secrets to the night. I walked inside, closed the door behind me, and locked it. In the dim hallway closet, I reached for the fireproof box I hadn't touched in over a year. Inside was the folder labeled Plan B. Deed. A signed trust document. My lawyer Dean's card clipped carefully to the front. The years of silence, the years of feeling invisible, of being dismissed like background noise in the home I had paid off with sacrifices I never spoke of. They all converged in that moment. Claire's mocking words still echoed in my ears, mingled with the faint scent of smoke from the grill. And then, steadying my breath, I picked up my phone and typed a simple message. I'm ready. Morning came, but sleep was a stranger to me that night. Not out of fear or panic, but because a strange clarity had settled deep within my chest, like a chemical shift had finally cleared the fog that had clouded my heart for so many years. For years, I had been the invisible force holding this family together, the unpaid caretaker, the quiet host, the one who substituted lunches with coffee, who worked through hot classrooms without air conditioning, all while Andrew's braces clattered in the background and Claire's words slowly eroded my place in this house. That barbecue was not a breaking point. It was the final page of a story I had been writing for a long time. I hadn't needed last night's insult to decide. The cracks had been widening for years. I met Dean through Camille's bridge group. I told him straight away I wasn't looking for drama, just certainty, a way to make sure no one could strip me of my dignity or home, no matter how cruel or blind they became. Dean listened quietly, asked the right questions, then crafted a living trust that hid my name from public view, buried beneath layers of legal protection. My maiden name, a shell company in Nevada, Fortress. Andrew didn't know. Claire certainly didn't. I kept paying the property taxes from a secret account. When Claire smugly posted on Instagram last year, boasting about doing her part for the older generation, I was quietly covering Harper's Minecraft subscription from my own pocket. I made spreadsheets, backed up photos, digitized every legal document, every password. Not for revenge, but for protection. Because I knew one day they would push too far. And when Claire clinked her wine glass and spoke those words, nursing home, I wasn't shocked. I was relieved. At last, there was a line so clear I could live with it without second-guessing myself. After sending Dean the text, I sat at the kitchen table where Andrew used to do his spelling homework, looking out at the yard where I taught him to ride his bike. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I began the checklist. Transfer utilities out of my name. Cancel the alarm service. Call Camille to borrow her van. Notify the trust's buyer's agent that I was ready to set the closing date. I packed what mattered. Photos, the faded quilt my mother stitched for me on my college graduation, the tiny ceramic cat Andrew made in first grade. The rest? Let them keep it. Sell it. Burn it down. It was theirs now, but I hadn't truly lived there for years. Not since Claire started calling me Babs, like I was some character on a reality show. Not since Andrew began asking me to text before dropping by in my own kitchen. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the air I'd been suffocating under. Camille arrived the next morning with coffee and gardening gloves. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She simply said, "Where do you want to start?" I pointed to the hallway closet. Start with everything they never noticed missing. We worked through the day, packing with the steady determination of women who have carried too much for too long. Boxes filled with memories, with the life I had once dreamed for this family. I folded my wedding dress carefully and placed it in a bin labeled sentimental but optional. Halfway through the linen closet, a voice pierced the quiet. Claire's voice, laughing on speakerphone, drifting in through the open window. I swear, if she caught the flu and dropped dead, we could finally put in those skylights, Claire said, laughter following like a jagged knife. Andrew muttered something inaudible, but he said nothing to stop her. No correction. No defense. Only silence. I held a stack of bath towels and thought, this is it. This is the moment I won't forgive. Not because it's the worst she's ever said, but because it's the most honest. They stopped pretending to care, and that means I can stop pretending to wait for them to change. I returned to the kitchen and opened the safe, pulled out the trust documents, the escrow packet Dean had couriered just the day before. Signatures ready. Buyer pre-approved. Cash in hand. A 10-day close. Nothing in their names to stop it. I slid the papers into a manila envelope, wrote "Final transfer" on the front, placed it inside my purse, like I was heading to a doctor's appointment, not ending a chapter of my life. That night, Andrew sent me a blurry photo of Harper asleep on the couch. The message read, She missed you today. I stared at it for a long time. If I replied, even with tell her I love her, I would be handing them the keys to my heart again. So I said nothing. I put my phone down, walked outside, sat beneath the oak tree. No warning, no conversation, no letter. Just years of silence and neglect. Every insult allowed to pass. Every holiday hosted with no thanks. Every meal cooked while mocked in quiet. My silence was the warning, and they never heard it. At dawn, I packed the last of my things into Camille's van, the same van she used for hauling mulch and folding chairs, now lined with blankets and boxes filled with what I truly needed. Family photos. My marriage certificate. The ceramic cat Andrew made in second grade. A locked case holding all my documents. A Tupperware full of Camille's lemon bars, because I knew I wouldn't eat if I didn't have something sweet within reach. I stood in the doorway of the house for 60 seconds. Not mourning, just memorizing. Every crack in the tile, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of lavender from the linen spray. I used to cover the smell of their takeout boxes, the ones Claire never threw away. I walked through every room one last time, checked off the list, unplugged the router, turned off the pilot light, left nothing behind except a folded letter on the fridge door, taped above the grocery list Claire started last week. It read, "This home has been sold. I no longer reside here. You have 48 hours to vacate. Legal documents enclosed. Please contact Dean Lell for all inquiries. Do not call me." I used black ink on cream stationery, placed a notarized copy of the deed transfer underneath, stamped with the trust's logo and the buyer's attorney's signature, front and center. I left the envelope unsealed, so Claire could see at once how official it was. So she could feel in her manicured hands how little power she ever had. When I stepped outside, Camille was waiting. 2 travel mugs in hand. A trash bag full of my old kitchen rags. We didn't speak until we hit the freeway. And even then, it wasn't dramatic. Just Camille's quiet voice. "You sure you're okay?" I answered simply, "Not yet. But I will be." We reached my new condo within the hour. A quiet building in the heart of the city. No lawn. No porch. No memories. Just clean walls. Working plumbing. A lock only I had the key to. I didn't tell Andrew or Claire where I was moving. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't drop hints in conversations. I ghosted them so completely that, had I not left that letter, they would have called the police, convinced I'd been abducted. That night, I sat on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, lamp plugged in beside me, eating lemon bars, listening to nothing. No television. No noise. Only the silence of finally being alone in a space that didn't demand I play hostess or smile through insults. The days that followed the move were surreal, like watching a play unfold from behind a glass wall. Andrew, Claire, and the children had no idea where I had gone. They only knew the house was empty, and the locks no longer worked. I heard the stories secondhand, from neighbors, from Camille, from the watchful eyes of Alan, the man who walked his dog like a guard on a secret mission. Claire was the first to arrive the morning after my departure. Oversized sunglasses masked her expression, but the anger leaked out in every step as she juggled shopping bags and held Harper like a fragile trophy on her hip. Andrew lingered 2 steps behind, his face blank and distant, the look of a man who no longer wanted to deal with anything. She tried the front door, then the back. Screamed Andrew's name like he'd rigged the locks. Andrew tried to. The latch jammed. The same jammed resistance. They called a locksmith. He took one look at the paperwork Sandra, the buyer, handed over and said, "This property belongs to a trust now. You're not on the title." The power shift was complete. Claire lost her temper. Called 911. Claimed they were being illegally locked out of their primary residence. 2 officers arrived. Ray Moreno was tall, calm, clipboard in hand. He listened to Andrew argue, explaining he had lived there 6 years. Paid for the kids' beds. Kept the yard neat. The officer shook his head. "That doesn't change the deed, sir." Claire filmed the scene. Shouted about elder abuse. Fraud. Sandra, prepared, calmly asked them to vacate the porch. Officer Moreno gave them 10 minutes to collect what was left on the lawn. They left. Drove to a 2-star motel 30 minutes away. next to a gas station. A shuttered Denny's. For 2 nights, they stayed there. Alan saw Andrew come back the next morning. Try the locks again. No answer. No change. Meanwhile, I remained silent. Camille sent me a text from Claire. Hope you're proud of what your friend did to her own grandchildren. For a moment, it stung. Not because I believed it, but because Maddie and Wyatt, my grandchildren, would be confused. I thought about writing a letter, explaining it wasn't about them, that one day they'd understand. But then I remembered Maddie's words last Christmas. She asked loudly, enough for me to hear, "Why does Grammy always look like she's trying too hard?" Claire laughed. Because she is. That was the moment I stopped thinking of myself as their grandmother. Not by blood. Not by love. I didn't reply to Claire's message. I didn't send an apology. Instead, I poured a glass of red wine Camille brought. We toasted to peace. The next morning, I mailed Sandra a thank you card. A bottle of lemon oil. A note that read, "May the house you bought be quieter than the one you found." To twist the knife just a little further, I sent a plain manila envelope to the motel where they were staying. No return address. No signature. Inside, a full-page printout of Claire's words at the barbecue. "You'll be in a nursing home soon, right?" No context. No explanation. Just her own words, a mirror. I learned they checked into room 208 the same day they were kicked off the porch. I wasn't spiteful. I was done. Claire posted on Instagram, tears and all. A filtered selfie of Harper curled up on the motel bed. Captioned, "Chaos but cute," followed by 3 crying emojis. I took screenshots. Not out of malice, but habit. Documenting the aftermath kept me grounded. Kept me connected to the reality I had chosen. Camille warned me. Some people don't deserve grandkids. She was right. The online backlash was swift. A Reddit thread exploded. Mother-in-law evicts freeloading family. Legal revenge move. People pieced it together. Screenshots. Real estate sites. Claire's own social media posts. Suddenly, Claire wasn't a sympathetic mother trying to protect her children. She was the woman who mocked the very person who paid her bills. Andrew's employer learned of the scandal. He was placed on leave. Claire cried corporate bullying. Tagged influencers. But I watched all this from a distance. Quiet. Detached. When messages started flooding Claire's accounts, calling her toxic, bitter, and worse, Camille stepped in. One replied, "You defend someone who tried to steal a house from a widow?" Attached. The trust deed. The messages stopped. I stayed out of it. Didn't post. Didn't comment. One day an email arrived. From an unknown address. One sentence. "Why doesn't Grandma want us anymore?" I knew it was Maddie. The spacing. The long anymore like her old spelling tests. For a long moment, I stared at the screen, wondering, what if I had left a letter? Kept the door cracked just for the children? But then I remembered. Amber's cruelty. Maddie calling me extra. The way Claire left. Even if I had left that door open, they wouldn't have come. Not without bringing her with them. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my voice recorder. Played back every cruel remark. Every exclusion. Every message where I was already dead to them. I recorded a single line. "You'll understand when you're older. I still love you." I saved it. Labeled it. Locked it away. That night, grief came. Not for the people they were, but for the people I once dreamed they'd be. When I woke, I emailed Dean. Asked him to add a clause to my will. Conditional inheritance. My children would receive nothing. No cent. No plate. Not a single word of explanation. Grandchildren would only inherit through a trust. One that required 1,000 hours of verified community service before their 21st birthday. Hours tracked by an independent third party. No loopholes. No shortcuts. Dean replied within minutes. Understood. I closed my laptop. Made coffee. Looked out the window. Not at the chaos, but at the peace I had purchased. It was a Thursday afternoon when they came knocking. I knew the moment before I even heard the sharp rap on the door, the kind of knock that tries to command the moment, to seize control before it's granted. I didn't open at once. Instead, I peered through the peephole. There she was, Claire, oversized sunglasses hiding the turmoil beneath, her hair pulled back tight, holding Harper on one hip like a prop, the kind of fragile object that could shatter with the wrong touch. Andrew stood behind her, 2 steps back, his face blank, the expression of a man who wants to pretend none of this is real. I cracked the door just wide enough for them to see me, to understand that nothing was the same. Claire was the first to speak. Her voice soft but rehearsed, like she'd practiced every line to make sure it landed just right. Barbara, we need to talk. This has gone too far. The kids are suffering. I didn't invite them in. I didn't say a word. I let them stand there, the motel sweat clinging to their clothes. The silence between us heavy and undeniable. Claire tried again, her voice louder this time. We're willing to work something out. Okay? We can all sit down and fix this for the kids. Then Harper, barely awake, surprised us all. She looked up at me and asked, with innocent hope, "Are we going back to Grammy's house now?" My chest tightened, but not with guilt. With the raw weight of knowing this wasn't reversible. Andrew finally stepped forward, pulled a printed letter from his back pocket. It looked official, legal. A plea. A warning. I didn't take it. Instead, I opened the side table next to my door, pulled out the flash drive I'd labeled, just in case, handed it to Claire. She took it like it was on fire. "What is this?" she asked, confusion flashing across her face. I answered calmly. "It's every voicemail, every group text, every message where you mocked me, excluded me, treated me like I was already dead." Her mouth opened. Words caught. Then her eyes shifted, like she remembered the worst things she said. Or maybe realized she never forgot them at all. Andrew looked away, like even he didn't want to defend her anymore. I spoke without raising my voice, without tears. "You didn't just forget I was a person. You taught my grandchildren to forget too." Claire tried to interrupt. Said, "That's not fair. We were just joking." I held up my hand. Cut her off. "Jokes don't cost people their homes. You did that all on your own." Harper whimpered softly. Andrew scooped her up. "Please, Mom, don't shut the door like this. We're family." For the first time, I looked Andrew in the eyes, straight and steady, and said, "You stopped being my family the day you laughed when she said I should be in a nursing home." His face crumbled just enough for me to see the crack, but not enough to fix it. Claire said nothing more, just turned and started walking away, muttering under her breath. I didn't try to hear. I closed the door slowly, not with rage, not with drama, with finality. When the lock clicked, I didn't lean against the door. I didn't cry into my hands. I poured a glass of water, sat down. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Andrew. "I hope you can live with what you've done." I stared at it for a few seconds, then deleted it, without replying. I could live with what I'd done. In fact, it was the first thing in years I felt I could live with at all. The day after they came to the door, I called Dean. Told him to finalize the will. No more drafts. No more hesitation. Make it legal. Make it airtight. I told him exactly what I wanted. Andrew and Claire would receive nothing. No cent. No plate. Not even a sentence of explanation. The grandchildren's inheritance was conditional. They had to complete 1,000 hours of community service before their 21st birthdays. Verified. Tracked. Approved. By an independent third party. No loopholes. No exceptions. Dean didn't flinch. Said, "Understood." He emailed the final paperwork for digital signature. As I clicked through the pages, the weight lifted, like bricks sliding off my chest. It wasn't revenge anymore. Not punishment. It was a boundary. A line so far beyond reach, they couldn't pretend to misunderstand it. I added a handwritten note myself, attached to the executor's letter. Under no circumstances were Andrew or Claire to be notified upon my death. Let them find out with the rest of the world, I wrote. The executor was Natalie, my goddaughter, the one who had cared for me, checked in between shifts, brought me soup when I was sick, never once asked about inheritance. That night, I called Natalie. "It's official," I said. She asked, "You okay?" I replied, "Yeah. I think I finally am." She came by the next day. brought Thai food, a six-pack of sparkling water. We ate on the balcony, like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. Something had shifted. I could breathe again. No one knocked on my door asking for favors disguised as love. No one cornered me at holidays with guilt. No fake hugs. No smiles dripping with contempt. Andrew tried texting again. Short this time. So that's it. I didn't reply. Didn't even open it. Blocked the number. Deleted the thread. Later that evening, Camille stopped by. Lemon tart in hand. Cheap champagne. This calls for something bubbly, she said. We laughed harder than we had in months. She raised her glass. To boundaries, she toasted. And I clinked mine. Quietly. Because that was what this was now. Quiet. Not silence out of fear, but quiet by design. When Camille left, I gathered a few things for a small memory box. The flash drive. A copy of the will. A photo of Andrew and me when he was 10. One of Tom holding Andrew on his shoulders. I placed them inside, topped with a note. For history, not for forgiveness. Locked the box. Slid it under my bed. The cedar chest I hadn't opened since Tom died waited silently. Before I went to sleep, I lit a candle. Stood at the window. Looked out at the city. The lights. The movement. A reminder. Life goes on. Whether you're in someone's orbit or not. I didn't miss them. Not the real them. And whatever grief remained, it was for the versions of them I used to imagine. The versions that stopped existing. The day Andrew let Claire speak for both of them. It's been 8 months since I shut the door, handed Claire that flash drive. I haven't heard a word. Not a text. Not a voicemail. Not a holiday card. Not a single handprint from the grandchildren. And the truth? I don't miss them. Not the way they are now. Not the versions of them that stood on my porch, begging for forgiveness, without ever saying sorry. I haven't blocked them because I'm bitter. I blocked them because I'm free. I have no interest in giving my freedom back to people who saw my kindness as currency. Christmas came and went without a knock. No surprise visits. No guilt-tripped dinners. I went to Camille's, brought my lemon bars, a photo album. When someone asked if I had kids, I just said, not anymore, and left it at that. Natalie checks on me every Sunday, sometimes with Thai food, sometimes just to sit, to laugh, over dumb reality shows we pretend we don't watch. I started pottery classes on Thursdays, joined a walking group, women over 65, who refused to slow down. One asked if I wanted to date again. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my water bottle. I don't want a man, I said. I want peace. And I have that now. May, the rosemary plant, has grown 3 inches. I talk to her every morning, like she's a roommate, who never interrupts. Sometimes I wonder if the kids ever think about me. If Maddie still remembers our baking nights. If Noah remembers sitting on the floor building cereal box castles. But then I remember. Any path back to them leads straight through Claire. And I burned that bridge. Salted the earth. Walked away barefoot. They never tried to sue. Probably because Dean made it clear. We were prepared. I never tried to explain myself. Because the people who mattered never asked me to. Last week, Natalie brought me the final executed will. I placed it in my safe. Without ceremony. Everything is in place now. Every piece locked down. Structured so tightly, they couldn't pry it open. With crowbars. I don't feel proud. Not exactly. I feel resolved. Like someone who finally stopped asking for a seat at a table she built with her own hands. One more email came. A few weeks ago. Anonymous address. One sentence. Are you really never coming back? I didn't open it, not wanting to know which one sent it. But when I finally did, I realized it didn't matter, because the answer was already written in every choice I've made since that barbecue. No, I'm not coming back. And if the question is whether I ever will, the answer is still no. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please consider subscribing and sharing it with them. Together, we can create a space where honesty, healing, and growth find a home. And remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries we set are the ones that save us. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.